Can you sing a little tune of that song?
Olvidarte de un amor que no se va a acabar. Estar con todo el mundo. Na 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 na.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 66 of the Iga and Carlos Tennis Show. And there's quite a bit to talk about because this is our US Open recap episode. And Carlos Alcaraz is now a two-time US Open champion. He's a six-time major champion. He's come through against his big rival Jannik Sinner in the final, and it was quite emphatic and decisive in the end. And there's a lot of takeaways about Carlos's whole 2 weeks as a whole, his the context of his rivalry against Sinner and where it's kind of unfolded from here, and just the display we saw all fortnight, because that was from start to finish the best major that Alcaraz has played, and it was quite stunning to watch.
Yeah, there are a few things in the world, like right now, that I just don't think are achievable for Carlos Alcaraz. One of them was winning a Grand Slam title without losing a set. I know he didn't do that here, but like he very feasibly could have done it. Even to get to the final without dropping a set was quite unreal. Final, I mean, we'll talk about Jannik and kind of how he never really looked like, at his best version for whatever reason. But this was feasibly a tournament where Carlos could have been like determined, focused, composed enough. I don't think it like took away the fun of his game either, which is good. But even from like some of the things he said and how he looked on the court, especially, I think it was clear that this was like a pretty, determined approach to try to find a bit more regulation. And to do that like that, in that kind of version, to also match Sinner for the year in slams, get ahead by 2 again, get the number 1 ranking, which probably was coming at some point this year, but I don't know. You never really know if he doesn't win the US Open. So that was a pretty special win, obviously, and 6 ahead of 4 now, 11-5 in the head-to-head. You could look at it many different ways, but definitely he separates himself for the time being in terms of some numbers from Jannik. But of course, maybe the main number is just 2 slams each this season, just like last year, and how they are separating themselves from the rest of the tour other than from one another.
Yeah, I mean, big picture, it's huge just to do that again like he did last year, and just basically the slam gap between them is what it was in 2023. So it's quite remarkable just how comfortable and dominant this looked, like just from the start, the way, I mean, we can talk about Sinner and kind of, I think, he's the one that dropped a couple of sets to Canadians who were kind of redlining, for a bit in the third round and the semifinals. But for Carlos, I mean, the first 5 rounds, he dropped his serve 1 time and he didn't lose any sets. And the one time he didn't drop his serve, he had some weird issue with his knee, which got resolved like as the match was going on. So I guess it honestly kind of all starts with the serve for him, because the one thing that we kept on talking about throughout the course of his career is with those ups and downs was that if Carlos can finally hit his spots on the serve, and if he can win a lot of points that way, just outright with the serve or the serve +1, and just get into that mode, which in a way, like a lot of people say, he has to be more boring, but I think he figured out that he can perfectly kind of blend the two things of his usual kind of magic sprinkle dust and all the variety that he has, but also combine it with a style that allows him to be really solid from the back of the court, combined with serving really well. And I think that whole combination just got him through to the first 5 rounds without wasting a single drop of energy. And that was really huge, because I feel like the match that he played against Lehechka played a pretty good quarterfinal match. And the fact that it was so decisive, I mean, to me, impressed me even more than the Djokovic performance, which is like, I don't think I would have said that at the start of the week, but it just, I think just the way that he came out also as well, with the hair and everything. Like I know that was a big topic. Like when he shaved his head and his brother said that,
very big, yeah.
Like the machine wasn't working, so Carlos, basically was like, just cut the whole thing off. And but I do think it gave him like this really intimidating look that just made him. It just added to the brand of tennis that he was playing, and obviously the hair grew back really quickly, like in record time. But but just the way that just the feel that he had about him this tournament, even right from the first round against Opelka, it was just very much business like, dominant, like just right off the bat, like I'm here to almost prove a point in a way that like, hey, like I am consistent. I can win a tournament without with few ups and downs. And I've been working on it, and I think he was quite glad to show that off, and he did very well.
Yeah, I think the Opelka round one, obviously, that's one where a lot of top seeds would have lost a set, including Carlos in 95% of the events. So I was pretty shocked to see him get through like that. Yes, later on, maybe some of the draw was a little easier for him. Berrucci, Darteri, International, all to make the quarters. Like, that maybe wasn't shocking that he got through all of that in straights, especially the first two matches. Like, they never really had any close moments at International, a little bit more. Of course, better serve there. But yeah, to have the serving quality that he had throughout the week is just so needed in Carlos's game, because it gives him something like solid to rely on. Even if you're this versatile, this amazing at, like, you know, having all the shots in the book and everything, I think especially in men's tennis, you kind of just need like one more thing to have a base that you can build on. At Wimbledon, when he also was serving very well for the fortnight, it just didn't really live up to the challenge of playing Sinner. We didn't see that drop off in the final yesterday. We didn't see that the serving was somehow different because he's facing a better opponent, the best returner on tour. And I think it really also, we're going to talk about the final in a moment, of course, but like, it really allowed him not to be under fire from the first shot of the rally every single time like he was at Wimbledon. And yeah, I would agree that the Hedge Cup performance was actually maybe even his best of the entire fortnight. I don't care that he played Sinner and Djokovic later. And it was a good example to me of that, what you said, that like, yeah, he was very controlled, he was very disciplined, he was serving great, but at the same time, still a lot of magical moments, still the smile on his face, like when he hits a crazy drop volley or something like that. And yeah, Hechka just felt like he was completely out of the match despite giving a good effort. It was really one of the like most, you know, straight up solid from every ball, from first ball to the last matches of Carlos's career, I think. And yeah, I guess Djokovic and Sinner, I just don't feel like he ever really reached those kind of heights. It's not like he needed to. I think he managed the matches extremely well. But yeah, that's kind of what the tournament was. Like, he just wasn't pushed to a point where we would have to see, you know, some absolute fireworks come out. And that kind of very efficient version of his game, while still enjoying it, while still having a lot of fun out there, was basically all he needed, all he required. And this time he was also able to show it in the final against Sinner, which, you know, at Wimbledon was kind of like a tale of two Carloses, that entire tournament. The one that got to the final and the one that we saw in the final, who was just under so much pressure that he couldn't really respond to it. And obviously the final was different yesterday. I even read a comment from somebody yesterday that I guess I kind of agree with, that, you know, it's their 16th match, and maybe this was the most lopsided. Like, it's tough to find another one. Maybe Beijing, the one that Sinner won. I think that obviously the first set got to a tie break, but that also felt pretty clear that he has the edge. But yeah, I mean, yesterday was kind of like that too. So yeah, I mean, there's really nothing you can say that is negative about this entire fortnight for Alcaraz. Obviously, getting the title in the end is also a massive win, the number one ranking and everything. But it's also maybe a sign of, you know, a new Carlos to come. I know he said that he's 20, you know, he's not at his max potential yet, which is pretty scary.
Yeah, interesting point about their most one-sided match, because I did see a stat from Oleg that even for US Open finals since 2017, this is like the most number of total points won, like margin wise, against an opponent. He won like 56% of his total points.
And last year we had Sinner Fritz, right? Where for the entire 3 hours, like, nobody ever wondered, is Taylor winning this? No, not ever. But then again, the points sometimes, you know, they were pretty close.
Right. And then whereas this one is like, you know, Jannik Sinner only had one break point the whole match. Like, this is Jannik Sinner. And,
yeah, it was not 40, so I guess technically you could say that he had like 3, but yeah,
but
I mean,
like, you know,
one game, literally one game.
And he converted it on the first try. So like that's how he won the set.
Yeah, I know.
But and I think I saw a set that Alcaraz only faced 10 break points the whole tournament, and like, you know, it's like the first time since like Sampras in the 90s that someone's only won a slam having dropped just 3 service games like the whole tournament, and like one against Djokovic, one against Darderi in the third round, and then one against Sinner. But actually, the Djokovic match was like an interesting mental test for Alcaraz, right? Like, just because he had lost 4 of his last 5 matches against him, just because of what happened at the Australian Open, and how kind of the mental gymnastics, I mean, the mental sort of way that Djokovic was able to get in his head and just play this sort of, unbelievably free brand of tennis once he got hurt, and how that kind of messed with Alcaraz's mind. Like, I think it was important for Alcaraz to get that first win on hard court, even if Djokovic was like completely out of gas by the third set. I just think it was a massive like mental win for him and boost. And even though he didn't oftentimes have to play his very best, he recovered. Like, for example, he played a poor game to get broken at the start of the second set, and the second set actually was never felt that close, even though it went to a tiebreak. And but then in the tiebreak, he kind of, he was up a double mini break, and like he missed a couple of shots and everything, but like he always had like that intent of lockdown mode, and then he sort of found it at the end, and then cruised his way to the finish line. So I still think that win over Djokovic, and I guess maybe we'll talk a little bit more about what that actually means in terms of the changing of the guard properly, as far as Novak is concerned, because he's in a quite an awkward spot right now. But for Alcaraz, I think that was a big mental win, and actually, like, in some ways, that rivalry makes him more stressed out than the Sinner one, right? So for
It
him to
used to
respect
at
that,
least. Like it used
um,
to definitely, yeah. In
and so I think,
Australia, we saw that we were talking about it, right? That it
yeah,
clearly
and
just means more. But I think it might be changing now, simply
yeah,
because since then he's played Jannik in a billion finals, including Wimbledon and Roland
true.
Garros, and maybe now that has kind of shifted in his head.
Yeah, and also it just reveals more of a gap between Djokovic and the new two. So, um, whereas before it was kind of like, oh, Djokovic would rather play Alcaraz than play Sinner, and now I don't even think you can say that, because now it's like both of them are just, they've really separated them. Uh,
Yeah.
and and Djokovic is still the third best player in the world. He's still beating everyone else. It's amazing he made 4 major semifinals this year, and yet there's that obvious gap. So, and also kind of the way that Djokovic sort of admitted afterwards that, like, in best of 5, he doesn't feel like he has a shot against these guys. It'll just get harder and harder for him physically to just come in with a full gas tank, or feel like he can beat both of them or even one of them, at this point in best of 5. So I thought uh, I thought that was kind of an interesting takeaway from the whole thing. And then you kind of had the match that he played against Sinner kind of on its own. Um, but what were your thoughts on the semifinal and just getting that win, just mentally, I
Yeah,
guess?
I mean, Australia, I also felt like all logic was pointing to Carlos. And then we saw that he had a bit of a tight performance. The conditions are really slow at night, can't really hit through Novak. He's just, literally making himself this like impossible wall to hit, to break through. And I don't think he ever had the chance to do it in these conditions. Plus, I don't know if I really saw that Carlos was like completely out of the woods in being nervous in this matchup, but the edge he had was like far enough that there's just it wasn't close. It never felt close. When he was already leading in the opening set, I mean, I only felt like Novak was trying to cling on and basically extend it. I know, yeah, he let up a break in the second set. You could start thinking maybe it's going to be Australia all over again. Carlos gets tight, the match gets going. But yeah, I mean, he just had such a comfortable advantage. The serving as well really helped in that, obviously, just securing him kind of and guiding his way to that. So yeah, I mean, in terms of Novak, I think he knows himself, obviously, what the situation is, because only he can tell you if this is his max, what he showed against Alcaraz here, or if he actually on another day could have more, could have something to trouble him or Jannik with. But because if this is his absolute max, the semifinal performance that he put in against Carlos, I don't think we're going to be watching him for that much longer, because it's just impossible for him to compete against them in best of 5. I thought that the entire year. He kind of threw a curveball at me during the Australian Open, obviously, by beating Carlos. But maybe now maybe now Carlos really has kind of also shifted gears in his mind that, well, Jannik is the main guy that I have to beat right now, not Novak. And maybe it will be a little easier for him also from that standpoint right now. Well, if Novak has to beat both of these guys, obviously he's not winning a slam, I think, from here. If he's only forced to beat one, I don't know. I wonder how a first round matchup at a slam would look between Djokovic and Alcaraz or Sinner. Maybe he just has to drop his ranking to outside the top 30, and then maybe he plays them early on and has more energy, has more steam. I don't know. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, if Novak considers that this is the best he could possibly play right now against either of these guys, I don't think he's going to stick around for that much longer. He's obviously only interested in the slams now. His performances at the other tournaments have mostly been poor, or, like he made the Miami final, he won Geneva to get that 100th title, but otherwise he's either barely playing, or when he's playing, he's just not at the same focus, like in all of these events, in the spring. So, yeah, I think it's getting really clear that he probably cannot compete against them in best of 5, and it's just what it is.
I mean, he said that very directly in his press conference, and also like he, doesn't prioritize best of 3 because he's not motivated by them. But then at the same time, he knows that's where like he has his best chance. But yet the way he schedules himself, it's like he plays RG, Wimbledon, US Open, and those are his last 3 tournaments. And I guess
but he's not going to care about winning the 40-something-ish ATP 1000, right?
So I guess my guess is like he probably just needs an endpoint and probably will just, see what happens in Australia, and I guess play the majors next year and then see like just where he's at, because of the gap between like the Fritz and Draper and Musetti and Zverev and all those other players. If they start beating him, I think then he'll be on his way out, because like then it'll be like, what's even the point? And then the thing is, for now, he's been playing his best matches in the majors in the quarterfinals. Like obviously you have the quarterfinal with Carlos, and then you have the quarterfinal with Zverev, and which was a total masterclass in Roland Garros, and then you have the Kabuli match, and then you have the Fritz match, which never really felt like all that close, even though Taylor, like, it was 7-5 in the 4th, but you still never really felt like Fritz was gonna win at any point. At least I didn't. So it was like, yeah, it's like somehow he's still number 4 in the race, or 3 or 4, something like that, right?
3 now, yeah.
3 now in the race, and then 4 in the rankings, and the guy like barely plays, or like he played like 11 tournaments this year, and like besides Miami and Geneva and the 4 slams, like he never really showed his true motivated self. So very weird spot, because he's almost like back in the same position that he was in 2008 or something. Like he's gonna start his career as like the third wheel in the Federal duopoly.
In 2 years, he's gonna lose to Paul Goldstein at the Australian Open, or the
right,
equivalent.
And then now he's like very much the third guy here. It's a strange dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, to be number 3 in the world, not yet, maybe ranking wise, but like, yeah, race and everything, and number 3 power level wise, it's impressive. The guys like Zverev and Fritz, like he very much just shows them, how much more intelligent he is on the court, how much more, I don't know, like all-rounded he is on the court as well. They just literally, Fritz and Zverev are great examples, because they're just like cross-court hitting machines, and Novak just punishes that like crazy. I know he's lost to Zverev a few times, but Roland Garros was, Jesus, I mean, that was just such a masterclass in showing why Zverev cannot be this passive and win a slam. Taylor here, yeah, just I don't know if I ever believed that he was going to win. If the match started a bit differently, if he wasn't 2 sets to love down, probably. But again, just a lack of range, a lack of options that Novak is able to expose. I think all these other guys you mentioned, Draper, Musetti, yeah, he would be beating them right now in slams. Maybe not at Roland Garros for Musetti, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, it's just where he is at the moment. He can definitely beat the rest. That's where he was the entire 2024 season. Even with the knee injury at Wimbledon, he beat everybody but Alcaraz. And he's just, I guess, well, right now he's a bit unlucky that these guys are so consistent, that they've won 8 slams in a row. 2 players at the top. I talked to a few people during this event about this. Like, it's a pretty dangerous spot for the sport in many ways, because one of them goes out and you have a tournament like last year's US Open, which after the Sinner-Medvedev quarterfinal is just not an event. Or, I don't know, Australia this year, which is kind of not an event after Alcaraz loses to Djokovic. So it's a little dangerous, I suppose, in some ways. But at the same time, these guys have been so consistent that they've made it work. They've made the thing like kind of glue together, because they have these finals and because they have these big moments that transcend the sport and go out to the casual public as well.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, they're meeting more than they're meeting their own family. Like they're just so. That's what Alcaraz said in his trophy ceremony, which I thought was really funny. But But basically, like, and the other thing that I picked up from their press conferences that I was just like after the final. I mean, so first Alcaraz and Ferrero both said that they spent 15 days just training for Jannik Sinner
Hmm.
after the Wimbledon loss. Like he took 1 week off. They talked about it right after the match, but then he spent 15 days like just game planning and figuring out, like watching tapes of the Wimbledon final, watching tapes of all their other matches against each
That's
other,
pretty fascinating, actually. Yeah,
and
I didn't see that quote. Yeah.
like for 15 days straight, they just zoned in on one player, and they're like, "What do I need to do to beat him to make sure Wimbledon final doesn't happen again?" And like that's crazy because it's basically like, oh, kind of assuming that like you're just gonna make the final, and like you're good enough, and you only have to worry about one guy. I think that was pretty revealing about that, and also just how much they know, like how often they're gonna be meeting and how much they're just gonna keep on
And
improving.
Yannick is doing the same, right? Because
And
after the
Yannick was
final,
doing the
he said
same.
that he wants to like change his game, be a bit more
Hmm.
unpredictable, intriguing. And okay, he doesn't say specifically that it's because he wants to beat Alcaraz, but like, why is he doing that? He's literally crushing everybody else, other than
Yeah.
like Bublik in Halle, which is a bit of an anomaly. But again, it's Bublik; he's
And,
wild. La la
and
la.
he said that he's prepared to lose to other players, or
Yeah,
like lose to other players, or beat them less convincingly, let's say,
yeah.
and experiment a little bit more in these matches and try out these things. Like he said, and I guess he was being a little too harsh by saying like he never served and volleyed and never hit a drop shot or something. But like essentially, he was like he didn't need to, and then all of a sudden he plays Carlos, and then you're expected to just try that in the Carlos match. Like it's if you haven't done it for 6 rounds. And so it's like it's not even about like dropping sets or not dropping any sets or getting through efficiently. It's more about like playing that creative brand of tennis against other players, even though you don't need to. Like he's gonna destroy them with just his regular game. So it's a really fascinating thing that they're both just so glued on to what the other person is doing, and they watch all the matches that they play against other players, and it's like they know like this is all just a prelude, and like they take care of business, and then they just meet in the finals, and it's been going on for 5 months, and and for the foreseeable future, it doesn't look like it's going to change. Like you know, probably next year they'll split all the slams again, unless something weird happens. Like um, it's really kind of they're playing a different sport, I guess, compared to the rest.
They are, yeah. Like the last 2 years, only thing really just like that we haven't seen is the Australian Open clash
Mhm.
between them, because Carlos hasn't been good enough there. Like that's kind of the thing, right? But if they also meet in the final there, and 4 in a row, then just like Djokovic and Nadal in 2011, 12, yeah, that will be kind of insane. And yeah, I mean, in terms of tailoring their games to one another, yeah, if Yannick is saying that, if Yannick wants to be more unpredictable, he's not doing that for any other matchup. He's not doing that because
No.
he struggled a little with Shapovalov or Roger Aliassime. He literally has the like base game to beat every single player on tour, but Alcaraz at 90% effort. So he's only
Yeah.
doing that for that. And I think when like about a year ago, we were talking about how like Iga has that Ostapenko matchup, but she shouldn't be like working on how to beat her. It's not happening that frequently. It's not happening in the later rounds.
Yeah.
Here, it's an exception because they're playing in almost every final right now. Since Rome, I guess they've played like what, 5 finals,
By
and
finals.
they've probably played, well, I'm gonna just like take it off the top of my head, but like 7 events each, 6 events each.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
yeah.
just Halle and Queens were where they were not together really.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
6 events each since
Yeah.
Rome, and 5 times they met in the final. And that's, well, Halle and Queens, they obviously weren't playing the same event. Carlos won
Yeah.
his, Yannick didn't.
Yeah. I mean, and also like Sinner did say it's not like he's suddenly going to like drastically change his game, but it's more just going to be like a process that will take a lot of patience. And he was like, it's not like I'm just going to come in Beijing and become a lefty, which was a funny line. But nonetheless, like if we go back to the final, like just the start that Alcaraz made, like right in the first game, you could right away tell that he was just so explosive running to his forehand corner, and you knew that he was, he did not want Wimbledon to happen where Sinner just put this like relentless amount of pressure on him, like right from the first 4 shots, and it all started because he served at like 62%, and like he was the one that got the better of the serve and return dynamic and won all the quick points. Whereas here it was like totally lopsided. It's like they just flipped the script completely because Alcaraz was serving amazing, and in the first set itself he made like 2 unforced errors, and he just had like a perfect blend of just like all out attack on the forehand and like huge serve plus ones, and just not allowing Sinner, like basically anytime Sinner hit a second serve, he was brutally punished in a way that I hadn't, like, because sometimes Alcaraz can miss second serve returns here and there, and he can do that, but he was like crushing and rushing. He was, just super dynamic from the back of the court, like not overdoing the variety. I mean, in fact, he was quite comfortable just going blow for blow from the baseline and being the more overpowering player for like 30, 40 minutes. And at that point, I was wondering, like, is this actually sustainable? And it felt like okay, maybe there was going to be a drop off coming, but then Alcaraz could rely on all of his other tools, which we then saw like in full flow. But just that first set and how it panned out, yeah, it was pretty. And I knew that Sinner was going to find his range eventually, and he wasn't quite on it right from the get go, obviously. But other than the first few games of the second set, where I think Sinner got into a better baseline rhythm, and he took some more risks on his second serve, and he made some adjustments to counter it, the match wasn't really ever close after that, which is crazy.
Yeah, first set was probably the best of the final from Carlos' standpoint. Yeah, I mean the returning was like locked in from start. Even when like he wasn't winning points with these massive forehands, he was also using the variety very intelligently. I just remember a couple of points where he hits like a short slice to the Sinner backhand, gets him out of the court. Jannik cannot recover to the middle. There's no chance. Or he adds a lot more height on the cross-court shot. And again, it kind of just results in Sinner being out of position. And you have so much space to hit the winner that it almost seems super easy. But, the setup is the magic there, not the winner. And after that, I don't know. I really started thinking, like, can he win this in straights? Can he actually do this? Because that would be something incredible. Of course, players have done that before, but not necessarily at the US Open. Rafa 4 times at Roland Garros, Roger at Wimbledon in Australia. But like for Carlos, it really seemed almost not achievable up until this tournament. And there was that literally one bad game. I think Jannik did well to like maximize his chances. As to what you said about it being so lopsided, I just think this was the absolute limit. When he got that break, I still felt like there's a big chance for Carlos to recover from it, and for how the entire match looked, just to like get to the end of the set after getting that break early in the second, that I think was literally the max that Jannik could have done on the day. Maybe there's like that one more moment in the final game where he saves the 2 match points and you're starting to question whether maybe Carlos will have some sort of nerves and everything. I saw people tweeting that, it could be like the Roland Garros final, which was obviously very reactionary and like heat of the moment thing. 2 points later, the match was over. But like maybe that was one more possible opportunity for Jannik to do something. But with the way that the match was going, I still feel like this second set, the fact that he even got it, like the fact that he served it out until the end, that was kind of literally the max that Jannik could have done on the day, which was very unexpected. It's rare for their matches to feel like that. You could definitely make that case that it was one of the most lopsided, or maybe the most lopsided match they ever played. And after the second set, third, fourth, they just kind of started feeling to me like the Djokovic match again, where Carlos is maybe not in top gear for the most part, but it's all he needs. Like he literally is just playing once more, very composed. Serve is just providing that solid foundation that he can rely on, and the edge is just so huge that there's almost no chance that he's gonna mess up. Like he would have to mess up 10 times in a row in order for something unpleasant to happen to him.
Yeah. I just felt like he found a great mix of like using that slice defensively and getting it really short, and then forcing Sinner to create with it. Like that's how he broke in the first game. It was just like Sinner missing a really low backhand where he had to like generate all of that pace. And like, this was something that I thought he didn't do very well at Wimbledon, was use the slice. And here I wasn't sure, like, but if it stays pretty low and he hits it well, and Sinner doesn't have a whole lot of time to run around it and hit forehands, it just worked really well. The other thing was that every time he had Sinner moving to the backhand and he had him sort of pinned in a corner, he just went straight forehand inside in without hesitating and without building the point or doing that. It was almost like whoever had the first like opportunity to attack, if they didn't take it and they didn't come forward or they didn't do anything big like right off the return, it was going to be really hard for the other guy to like, get back in the point. And I just felt like Alcaraz put so much emphasis on the first 4 or 5 shots of the rally, which he wouldn't always do on a clay court. He would sort of just trust that, like, okay, I can just work my way, get back to neutral, and then kind of wait out the storm that way, and then do it from the baseline. And it almost didn't work for him at Roland Garros. Like, he pulled off all the magic, and then he was able to do it, like in the 5th set tiebreak. But this was like a very different approach from him. This was like, I'm gonna go out there and just dominate the first 4 or 5 points, 4 or 5 shots of the rally, and I guess when you serve as well as he did, like, that just provided the template for it, where he just showed how many more options he has than Jannik, and that's why Jannik probably feels the way he did, which was like, there was a moment in his press conference where he was like, I'm a good player, I'm a strong hitter, I'm a good baseliner, but like, it was almost like how do I do all these things that Alcaraz is doing with with all this creativity and imagination? And it's like, yeah, like, he just never really allowed Sinner to settle in that way. And there were like a lot of errors from bunches that I saw from Sinner at the start of the 3rd set, which you don't normally see. They're a little more uncharacteristic. But I do think he was like going closer to the lines and missing wide very often, and that's because Alcaraz was forcing a lot of those mistakes with, just how explosive he was on the forehand and how many more options he gave himself, and just the fact that Jannik wasn't in many return games, and it all just kind of, yeah, it was just one of the most perfect matches actually that Alcaraz has played aside from one game, and it felt like he had enough margin to do it. So
yeah, that first set, I guess it was more to me like, yeah, how explosive Carlos came out again after dropping the second. It's just Jannik on the day could not
like
live with
5
that.
love in 15, 20
Yeah,
minutes.
in just a moment, like literally on the day, Jannik could not live with the kind of physical intensity that Carlos was bringing when he was like, on top of his game, very confident. Yeah, the counter-attacking was really good. Like when Jannik wasn't doing like enough, maybe with his first shot, but against most players it would be enough. Maybe against Carlos it would be enough. But you just instantly saw him run around and just smash that inside in so many times. To get on top of the point. I think that's kind of the best thing as well about how their styles complement each other, is that Jannik is obviously, as he said, just literally a great ball striker. He's the best right now when it comes to like shot for shot quality. Every single thing is just perfect. Every single thing is top 5 in the world. But at the same time, you have Carlos with like so many more options and the versatility. So there's always intrigue, because basically the matchup is like Jannik is trying to play his game, and then Carlos is going to throw some stuff at him. Sometimes it will work, sometimes it won't. Recently, most of the time, it's been enough. And Jannik, it seems like, didn't really have too much of a plan yesterday. Just attack the nets mostly. Like that was his main.
That's what he did at Wimbledon, right? He just stripped Alcaraz of time and then just came forward a bunch.
And like he was trying to pull off virtually the same thing. Carlos was recovering better, firing back. The serving improvement, which at Wimbledon meant nothing against Jannik, this time it did. So I suppose if you look at it from like a mathematical, point of view, it makes sense that the match looked like that, because all the stuff that Jannik did at Wimbledon just kind of at this point, it was more desperation. He was like at the net so much, and just trying to go there. Of course, he's improved a lot over the years. As of all the year, his transition game has gotten so much better. It's part of what made him who he is as a player right now, but it's still not something he does like insanely well and is all that natural out there. He has to kind of like force himself to do it. So I mean, the unpredictability thing is still huge here, and part of the reason why Carlos was able to prevail. Otherwise, outside of the second set, it just never really felt close, and it never felt like Jannik had a great idea as to how combat Alcaraz on the day. He did look a little like, I don't know, not unwell, but just overall not that sharp physically. Didn't quite have that like max intensity. I don't know if we ever got an answer.
I was wondering if there was a lingering abdominal thing, but to be honest, I didn't see anything during the whole match. Like I didn't see him. There were no.
He wasn't touching anything. Yeah, he was just like overall not explosive enough. I suppose.
Yeah. And I suppose the first serve thing had been an issue for him the whole tournament. Like there was only one match that he served over 60%, and you look at all the serve stats generally throughout the whole year, and it's like Jannik holds serve the more often than anyone else. He wins second serve points more than anyone else. It's like he has really good serving stats, but the one is the first serve percentage, where I think his season average is like 60.8%. And the one time he beat Alcaraz convincingly recently was the Wimbledon final, and he served 62% there. And
Yeah,
here,
but
like,
there's
maybe
always
there's
a question like what would happen, right, if he slows it down, if he
yeah,
tries to
if he slows
hit
it
more
down, but for
often.
whatever reason, he just never like even when his first serves were going in and when he was having impact, it just felt like he also wasn't able to finish points all that well because of Alcaraz's speed and also what Alcaraz was able to counter all of his attacks and like forehand winners like 14-5 for Alcaraz. So I thought that was a big difference as well. And then Alcaraz had all those ideas with like the fake drop shots, and then he would come in, and like Yannick just didn't know what was coming at him. And it's like you can't like I'm gonna say I'm gonna use another overused joke, but like the AI can't really read Carlos. Like you can't really read Carlos's patterns. The algorithm is it's like Alcaraz doesn't even know what he's gonna do. So how does the opponent know? So it's like there's some of that as well, which I think really made Sinner feel like, oh, like I have to like actually change my game, like when I play him. So I have to change the way I kind of operate regularly. But it was just honestly a masterclass in terms of just combining everything that Alcaraz is so great at, and when he's in full flow like this, it makes you think he can do it on every surface. And the fact that this was an indoor final as well, didn't really change that much. I guess Arthur Ashe is just such a big stadium, and most of it is already covered anyway, except for the middle of the court. But
Yeah, we talked about it before, right? That it feels like on these bigger stadiums, it just doesn't mean as much. Like
I
sometimes it
think so.
even like
Yeah,
slows the conditions down rather than helps the
it's
players
possible
who
because
usually perform better indoors.
you do get like more humid inside, and
Yeah.
it's
So
not really the
I
same
don't
when
think
you're
it
very
was a
much.
big deal, but even if
Yeah,
Yannick obviously loves indoor courts more and kind of like these perfect conditions that an indoor venue provides, that's better for him. But I just don't
yeah,
feel like on a big court like this it matters a great deal, which is good because like we wouldn't want to see slam finals decided by the fact they were under the roof or not.
yeah. The other pattern that I didn't see quite often is like the one where Sinner uses his backhand on the line and just like hits the living daylights out of it and forces Alcaraz to defend on the forehand. I just feel like every time Alcaraz was running to the forehand corner, he always had an answer. Like maybe not always, but it's like Sinner has that really good running cross court forehand, but Alcaraz he can loop it up really high when he's defending. He can hit it explosively back and counterattack himself. Like he did that so well in the first game. And he just has all these options. There were so many times he was just digging slice, just digging like these squash shots when he was on the run and just like resetting the rallies. And then he's so quick to recover back to the middle, and just like that explosiveness was really something that stood out, and it just showed that Sinner is so balanced when he's moving and he's on the run and everything, but Alcaraz is just able to pierce his forehands and big shots through the court in a way that just allows him to set up all the variety. And it's like, yeah, when it's all firing and in full flow like it is here and like it was the whole week, it's just really hard to stop that peak level. And
Yeah, Yannick definitely has that like forehand counter on the run as one of his trademarks. That's probably the shot
yeah,
I think of, honestly, when I think of him. But there was maybe one only hit in the final, which was the game where he broke for love
yeah,
30. Very important shot there. But yeah, so many also points where he hits an amazing ball on the run, but then probably doesn't have enough time to recover. Like Carlos strips him of
mhm.
time. He's going to hit that massive shot, yes, but if it's not perfectly in the corner, if the angle isn't amazing, he's going to be punished for it. He's like not recovering through the middle
Yeah.
well enough.
I think Alcaraz is quicker at recovering back to the middle
He
from that
is, yeah.
position. And Sinner, at that point
It was
is
massive against Djokovic, where it was very explainable because, well,
yeah,
Djokovic is 38 years of age, and you could really see in any longer exchange how much more dynamic Carlos is in literally recovering from corners. But I think against Yannick too, I recall this like one point, for example, where Yannick, he goes absolutely ballistic on the shot, but it's like let's say between the middle
yeah.
of the middle
It's the
of
one where
up.
Alcaraz hits that backhand like behind the baseline and just puts it in the open court.
Yeah,
That
yeah. I
game
think I think
is
that's
like,
what I think that's the one I mean. Yeah, it's just
yeah,
not in the corner from Yannick. It's like middle of the between the center line and the corner, and that's just not going to be good enough because after that huge shot on the run, he's just not even attempting to recover.
yeah,
So a lot of points like that in general, where you could see that. Of course, Yannick is quick. He's amazing on the run, but the recovery, the athleticism is just a little better for Carlos.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just like a continuation of like, I think he's made 8 finals in a row now, and he's won 46 of his last 48 matches, and like we haven't seen Alcaraz be like that dominant for like half a year like this. I don't think so. Like this is easily his best season, and it's easily the best stretch of like 6 months of tennis that I've seen him play across all surfaces at this point. And just a question, like now he has such a big lead in terms of the race as well, like in terms of year-end number one, which I think is even bigger than like getting back to number one. Like getting back to number one is huge. He hasn't done it in 2 years. But I think finishing the year number one,
Yes.
would just solidify it. And he's in a great spot to do that, like 2,500 points ahead. And of course, there's still 2 more Masters events. There's still Tokyo. There's still, the ATP finals, of course.
And there's always going to be the argument as well that Jannik didn't play in the spring, right?
Mm-hmm.
So whatever happens from here until the end of the year, even if Jannik clinches here in number one, Jannik is going to have a good shot at reclaiming that in the spring. Like that's just undeniable. Mm-hmm. You cannot argue with that. However, of course, now he's got the chance to finish number one, and I do think it's more important than just like reclaiming the spot in general. Jannik has typically been just so much more consistent. That was not a possibility, but right now I wanted to say this earlier, but I forgot. But like Jannik kind of has to become Alcaraz, and Alcaraz kind of has to become Sinner in order to like fix the flaws in the game. And for Carlos to be a little more consistent, he needed to get a bit more like Jannik, and Jannik right now is going to try to be a little bit more like Carlos. And then I guess that's also evening out the ranking situation. Although, still the main thing is just the fact that Jannik missed like 4 ATP 1000 events.
Yeah. Like next spring will be interesting for that from a Sinner perspective, to see how he's able to like sort of make up the ground between like the Sunshine Double and like Monte Carlo and Madrid and stuff.
And of course, he's got more to defend in Australia as well. So if he doesn't do that, then it's not even clear that the spring will help him.
Yeah, so the question is just, can Alcaraz sustain this enough to give himself, like, does this make you think that Alcaraz has a really good shot at winning the Australian Open or something next year? And like completing the career slam and, getting a
really good shot, yes. But like the question is what happens in the final, and I'm not sure.
That's the question. But you do think like at this point, he should be making the final there, like at least.
Yeah. Not making the final there is a bust at this point. Like it's going to be a big disappointment for him, I think. Just, not having done that before, and clearly, he will be at least the number 2 seed, probably number 1. Jannik will be number 2 or number 1 as well. So you kind of have to make the final. Like that's how that's how he has to be looking at it, right? If he loses to Sinner in the final, sure, it can happen, but like there's no excuse in losing to anybody else, I suppose.
Yeah. And I think that would be a big goal for him, is to just try to get to the final, try to win it, try to put himself in that place. His schedule is quite packed, I must say. This part of the year, he has pulled out of Davis Cup, so that is good. Like he definitely needed to do that.
Yeah.
But then there's still Laver Cup, there's Tokyo, and then there's Shanghai. I guess there's the Six Kings Slam again. Our favorite event.
I wanted to see if you were gonna mention that. Yeah.
Yeah, but like it is on the calendar, and then after that is Paris and the ATP finals, and then Davis Cup if Spain.
No Basel or Vienna this year.
I don't think so. No, I don't.
Okay, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, there's always a chance, I guess, to pull out of something later, right? I mean, I imagine he plays both events in Asia, but some of the indoor events before the ATP finals he's been skipping, so maybe he doesn't play Basel or Vienna. I don't know.
I don't think he would, because like the Six Kings Slam finishes that Sunday, and then Basel Vienna is like right after that. So I think last year they skipped it, so I anticipate it'll be the same. But
okay,
who knows? But yeah, I think having a good healthy shot at the ATP finals would also be nice, just because like he missed it in 2022, and then last year he was of course sick, and then he lost to Ruud and Zverev. But this year would be I think if he's healthy and he's playing the way he is, he can have a good shot at winning that maybe. And I think just doing enough, I think, to like secure the number 1. Obviously has to be a big goal for him. And then just getting it back, I guess. And then also winning 6 slams. I saw that he's only the fourth guy to win 2 slams on every surface already.
Yeah.
And that's Djokovic.
That's obviously also
Federer,
because in the past it was impossible to do. I mean, Rod Laver, when he won the calendar Grand Slam, there was 1 slam on clay, 3 on grass. Up until 1988, the Australian Open was played on grass. US Open went through all surfaces, which Jimmy Connors won on all of them. But yeah, someone like Connors also only had 1 clay title, because at the US Open he had 1 on clay and the others on hardened grass. So it's a bit of a, well, it's not a fake stat, but it's only like 1988 and above where it really starts mattering much, which is still a thing. Like, after 1988, I suppose, when Wilander did it, you only had 2 players. So
yeah. One more, the other day I was looking at him, in the first 2-3 months of the season, and he played that match against Goffin where he was like just putting in first serves like in the middle of the box and getting crushed on the return. And it's just like the serve that I feel like he's improved the most is like on the deuce side when he hits that slider out wide. It's like such a big weapon now. He's able to like find the spot. He's able to hit like 110, like sliding serve out wide for an ace, or just like I feel like he's just mixing up his spots so much better, and it's harder for the returner to guess where he's gonna go. There were so many times where Sinner was like either leaning one direction or not quite sure, like kind of guessing. Like he got so outplayed in terms of the serve. It was like 10 aces to 2, right? And like all these first serve points, and the serve plus 1 was so big. And it's just like, what an improvement for him to go from like serving the way he was in like February and March, where I guess they were already kind of working on the technique and everything, to like do it now. I mean, we did see the serve bot version of Alcaraz, I guess, in Queens at some point, and during the grass season and in other matches before he played the Wimbledon final.
Nishioka famously in Australia.
Right, like, so we've seen it in spades, but like for him to pull it out in such a big match like this, and in the fourth set as well, he started at 71%. Like, and the contrast between him and Jannik on serve was so stark in the fourth that yeah, it almost feel like he didn't even need to do that much else besides just serve great after he got the break for 3-2. And like, if he serves like this in other faster conditions, and he keeps up the confidence that he has right now, it's just really hard to imagine him not getting to all these finals, honestly.
Yeah, the serve was always kind of like one of the main things to talk about for Alcaraz since, like, I don't know, 2021 or something like that. I think that was the season when he improved his speed by like 30 kilometers an hour throughout the year. But it never felt like it's like, a major asset in his arsenal before. And for someone like this, who's got so many options, again, just having something solid to rely on is maybe even worth more than for other players.
Right. I saw Gil Gross. He put out a tweet that said like, "This is Alcaraz's like best performance ever."
The final?
Yeah, like, would you say that? Because
I don't think
feel
the
like it might
opponent was
be-
good enough. I know that this isn't something like you could possibly have your best performance against your opponent not being maybe the best player in the world. In this case, he was, but like just theoretically. But I just don't think Jannik was good enough for that.
Yeah, for me, I almost wanted to push back and be like 2023 Wimbledon final. The way he like won 6-4 in the fifth, and like broke all those rules, and like 3 weeks after cramping and in the same matchup. And so for me, I always like, in some ways, like when people are like rank Alcaraz as slams, for me that's like number 1 still, even though he like just beat Sinner so comfortably.
That or around Garros probably this year.
Or Roland Garros this year, just because of the final
Yeah.
and how epic it was.
Or
But-
US Open 22 because of all the 5-setters along the way.
Yeah, it's like actually kind of a tough assignment. If you're like, rank Alcaraz as 6 majors, they're all like so impressive in their own unique ways that it's like kind of really hard to be like, oh, okay, this one's number 1, this one's number 6. But I was talking about it with Owen actually in WhatsApp, and we were like trying to rank his slams, and it was like actually really hard to do.
Yeah. The problem for me with Wimbledon 23 is that I was watching the final on the train and the connection was Jesus Christ. So I have a lot more like attachment to Roland Garros this year because I was, in my living room watching it with my parents actually, and like really got into it. I mentioned it on the show before that like Wimbledon final or yesterday, I was just watching, as a pretty much a neutral viewer, But Roland Garros, I was just like, vamos, you know? So, yeah, I have a lot of attachment to that. I think I would
It's
have
funny.
to lean towards that just for the emotional value. I
Yeah.
wish I saw a lot more of the 2023 Wimbledon final in real time. And maybe
Right.
then it would also be a little different for me. But they're kind of the main two, I think. US Open 22 featured so many five-setters, but they weren't, well, okay, Jannik at the time, but maybe, well, at the time, they weren't coming against the best possible opposition, I suppose. And yeah, it's a legendary run, but it's probably not quite as high for me.
Yeah.
I guess Wimbledon 24 would be the worst.
I think I would have that number 6. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me that's number 6. Yeah. Number 1, I think there's a good argument for RG this year. There's a good argument for Wimbledon 23. This one, I know it was like his most dominant from start to finish, but
that's
yeah.
a problem actually, right?
Yeah,
ranking it,
that
because it
makes
was
me not want to
dominant
put it. That
and
makes me
not
not
as
want to put it
memorable.
number 1. Yeah,
Yeah.
it makes me like not want to put it number 1 and also not fall
Exactly.
victim to recency bias, which is so easy to do.
It could be the best. It could be the most like controlled from start to finish, but
Yeah.
because of that, it's just not as memorable too. Unless this is like the beginning of a new era of Carlos's game. In 10 years, we're not going to be talking about this slam. We're just going to be saying, oh yeah, he pretty much dominated the US Open, but you're going to remember the 5-set wins and the match points saved and everything. So unless this is like really a turning point, it's not really going to be part of the most memorable Alcaraz wins conversation.
Yeah. I saw a lot of different takes about the quality of this match in terms of like, some people were like, oh, it's so boring, they're playing all unevenly and they're not bringing the best out of each other. And I think they're just, those are the people who got so used to expecting like RG 2025 to be like the norm, which so obviously is not the case. It's a total outlier match. And there's going to be few of them. If they play like 60 times, there's going to be like maybe 2 or 3 of those for every 10 duds. So relative duds, I guess, which is still better than most of the matches on the tour. So from that standpoint, there's going to be matches like Wimbledon 2025, this one, where if one player's a little off, then you're going to have these like one-sided sets and it's going to feel like not a classic.
I mean, it was by no means their best ever, obviously. But did I still enjoy it? Yeah. I mean, it was still like the cherry on top, which the men's event kind of needed after all the poor action since like third round onwards. So, yeah.
Yeah. I guess something that doesn't need for it to just only rely on the final to be exciting is, women's tennis right now because, you are seeing Świątek and Sabalenka at the top, but you're seeing a lot of other players come in and potentially beat one of them, challenge the other, beat both of them in the same tournament, like we saw with Keys in Australian Open this year, or Andreeva at Indian Wells, and Ostapenko in Stuttgart and stuff. Or you're seeing Amanda Anisimova make 2 major finals in a row. But all this to say, I guess let's talk about Iga and her, US Open as a whole. Obviously, we touched on it after the draw, how she played mixed doubles and came back from Cincinnati and I was feeling pretty confident about her game. I think both of us sort of picked her to win just based on form and just kind of the way that she was trending, and she looked like the favorite, and I think she was the favorite really to win this tournament. But then when I saw her play in the second round and the third round, I had some doubts. I really did, because I didn't feel like she was serving well enough. I felt like the movement at times wasn't quite as sharp as it was in Cincy. I started to feel like maybe if someone red lines before we get to the final, it could be really difficult for her. Like for instance, the first set against Kalinskaya, she started 43%. The forehand wasn't really quite there like it was in Cincinnati in terms of the control and the way she was absorbing pace on it. So I felt like she was going to be vulnerable to like a redlining opponent at some point. And the Anisimova match was of course very different because I don't think anyone expected anything like it was going to be 6-0, 6-0 again with Amanda just being in the
so many people
semifinals.
did, to be fair. I mean, I saw the comments on social media, just ridiculous to me.
Like I think Amanda needed to get one game on the board, but after she got that one game, it was going to be like, let's just swing freely, right? And
you just said like it would be naive to like expect Sinner Alcaraz to be 110 out of 10 every single time. It would be so naive as well to just remember to just expect Amanda to fold like that every single time she plays Iga.
Yeah, but instead, like we saw her play a really great match, and then we saw Iga not really do that much wrong, but the couple of times that she lost her serve and the couple of times that she led by a break in both the sets, it just wasn't going to be enough what she had on the day, and yeah, I mean there were a few net cords as well that kind of went against her in the second set. There was that like game that she had 2-love, 30-love, I remember, and then Amanda comes back, plays a great game to break her. Obviously, we know what Amanda can do on the backhand wing, but this tournament as well, the serve and the forehand and the movement were holding up really well. So Iga wasn't quite able to, move her around, get her in those corners the way she was able to at Wimbledon, just because, Amanda was, it was just going in Amanda's strike zone most of the time, and Iga was having to defend a lot more. And yeah, I mean, in some ways, it was quite a decisive scoreline, but it was also just kind of more indicative of like Amanda recovering so quickly, honestly, after the Wimbledon final loss, and impressive feat for her to then win that match from a set down against Naomi, and even push Sabalenka in the final, despite never really playing her best in the final. But as far as Iga is concerned, honestly, it once you put it all in context, it kind of doesn't really surprise me that she lost this one.
Yeah, I mean, she won Wimbledon. Who cares if she lost at the US Open? That's kind
Yeah,
of
like I kind of just treated everything like gravy after Wimbledon. So
yeah. I mean, I think I said it on one of the previous episodes. Like right now, she can lose every single match until the end of the year, and it's still a successful season. Especially not only because it's one slam, but also because it's that one. Another surface, another title added to her
I
tally.
do agree, but at the same time, I was also thinking about the number one, just because she was only 400 points behind or whatever.
Yeah, now it just seems done after the
So
US Open. Obviously, after Arena won it.
yeah,
Um,
after this, I think that's no longer really a goal because she's so far behind.
It's probably not. I don't know if it was in the first place. Like I don't know how important it was to her. As I said before, I don't really care about number one that much. If you've been there already, if you haven't, it's major. But yeah, I mean, Anisimova to recover like that from the Wimbledon final, that was impressive. There was a moment, of course, when she's like love to down, love 30 or 15-30. You start wondering whether maybe something like that can happen again if she just goes on a bad run right away. But she needed to start pretty well. She kind of did. And yeah, the serve return game, how early she was on top of all of the points, so difficult to handle. With the serving rhythm as well that Iga was missing, pretty much impossible in some ways. I mean, you cannot just serve at the Amanda backhand, it's too strong. But then when she was hitting serves at the forehand and they were sitting up for her, like directly where she wants them, it also was just resulting in a massive strike going at Iga. I don't think she was absorbing the pace at all. Like so many shots where Amanda is hitting that forehand return, especially, and the ball just like flies off uncontrollably off Iga's racket. I don't know if it's the US Open series balls that are so different to Wimbledon as well, which definitely makes something like that a lot tougher for her, right? Just the fact that they're lighter and don't like stay on your racket as much as I think she said it in the Roddick podcast. But yeah, I mean that made it so much tougher for Iga to handle Amanda, and ultimately a lot of that is just the serving again, kind of like we were talking with Carlos, not having the base, not having the rhythm that you can somehow rely on and build your game upon, just being under fire in virtually every single point. Amanda definitely played insanely well on the day. The backhand down the line, it's just one of the best shots in the sport right now. She kept delivering as well. I think in the final they were both nervous, so it's not like it was only Amanda who like didn't live up to the task or something like that. There were moments when Arina was also kind of losing it, different pressure on her. She wasn't going for her first slam, but she definitely felt like she deserved one this year. I think she was so desperate to get it. Amanda was playing at like insane pace sometimes, both in the quarters and in the final. In the quarters, I guess she just kind of had enough space to manage that type of play style, to manage taking the ball so early and so so huge just in terms of the raw pace. And yeah, Sabalenka just redirected and absorbed that much better than Iga did in the quarters. Yeah, I think I also agree with what you said, that I was thinking that at some point there might be a redlining player. The draw was kind of lining up like that too, Kalinskaya, Alexandrova, Anisimova. Like,
It's a brutal draw.
neither of these is that easy for Iga, right? It's always just like you enter that match, and it could be a 6-6 win for Świątek. It sometimes is. It almost sort of was against Alexandrova, but a lot depends also like on what the opponent brings. If they are going to be on the absolute top of their games, it's not going to be easy. It's actually going to be a struggle. And yeah, easily could have lost a set to Kalinskaya, lost one a bit, maybe, not needed that against Layman's. But from the third round onwards, it was kind of similar-ish opponents all the way. Even if we got Osaka and Sabalenka later, that would also be a thing. So just so many power hitters. One of them was going to be, one of them was bound to just have a really good day at the office. And then you see if Iga is able to tackle that at all or not. And in this quarterfinal, she just wasn't fully there.
Yeah. She did also mention in her Instagram post struggling with a foot problem.
Yeah.
So like we saw, I think I saw some pictures of her like with, it looked like just blisters at the time with like, a lot of tape and a lot of just work being done to like prevent, the foot from like flaring up and stuff. But it seems like she was kind of having to manage that throughout the whole tournament. And at times she did look like she didn't have her feet underneath her when she was absorbing pace on the forehand, I thought. But for the most part, she was able to still play with it. And all things considered, I still think it was a good run, winning Cincinnati, getting to the quarters here. Sure, she got outplayed and, by a really awesome opponent on the day. But, it still felt different from, let's say, when she lost last year in the quarters to Pegula.
Yeah.
The level of play was much higher here, I think. And also just
mentally, she didn't give up. Against Pegula, she was just like fried. After the first few games, she was just fried. She just went on, but never had any belief that she was going to turn it around, never had any attempt to find solutions. And it wasn't like that here.
Yeah, and the pattern is still the same, where like she loses in the quarters to an American, then the American makes the final, and it has like a really exhausting semifinal, and then
that's a very fun thing to say, but sure.
Yeah, and then then loses in the final, tight 2 sets, some chances, but ultimately Sabalenka wins, and it's the same pattern, but I just think the matches, the Pegula match and this one, were very different in its complexion. So from that standpoint, it's still good year. She probably finishes the year number 2, even if she has a really awesome Asian swing. But before, some people were talking about her dropping out of the top 10 after Roland Garros or Rome. So to go from that to this is still pretty awesome turnaround, I think, all things considered.
She was like number 8, right? At Roland Garros or something like that.
Yeah, she was the 8th seed at Roland Garros. I guess even at Wimbledon, she was the 8th seed.
I mean, she won't take the number 8 seed for Roland Garros.
Yeah. Yeah, like, there was a world where it could have gone even worse. So I think, and also just like with Carlos and Jannik, like their slam count is still a gap of 2, which is what it was at the end of last year and the year before that. So from that standpoint, because Arena didn't really, she had those losses in the finals in Australia and Roland Garros, they still both each won 1 slam this year. And you look at the whole slam season as a whole for Świątek, semifinal win, quarterfinal, pretty good, right? So
basically
really ask for that
best, I guess. Well, depends how you look at Anisimova, but I mean, Keys obviously won a slam, but then didn't do much at the other 3, got the same. So second best at the slams this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then I guess from here, she's won Beijing and she's won WTA finals already, albeit not indoors. It was outdoors, but still she has that under her belt. And
where did the WTA finals held? The same place again, or?
Yeah, same place.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't even know. That's wild, but yeah, sure, makes sense.
Yeah, Riyadh.
Yeah, it's probably like a contract for a few seasons or something like that.
Yeah, so I suppose she doesn't have much to defend, which I guess in terms of getting the number 1 next year, this could be something. But honestly, I already feel like she has 125 weeks at number 1. Still quite a, it would be nice to get it back, I guess, for her, but it's not like, I think winning slams right now is probably more important than winning big titles. So, because she also has 2 year-end number 1s. I guess if Sabalenka gets it this year, she would tie her for 2, since she got it last year as well. But I think
that's probably not the same kind of rivalry, right? You've mentioned that a few times.
Yeah.
That like Sabalenka, she's too behind in the slam race. Like it's not quite the same. Sinner and
It's not.
Alcaraz
And I was
are
thinking
dominating
about,
the tour together. They're closer in age too.
yeah,
And
I
Świątek
guess they're 3 years
Sabalenka is
apart, right? Świątek Sabalenka 3 years, Alcaraz
yeah,
Sinner less
it's
than
like
2.
they're coexisting on the tour, of course, but
Yeah,
their careers aren't as like intertwined as Alcaraz and Sinner
true,
are.
true.
So
But it
yeah.
is still crazy we haven't gotten a slam final between them. I think that should happen at some
Mm,
point. Just
yeah.
because they have been number 1 and number 2 for so long, or for so many weeks
Yeah,
combined.
absolutely. Yeah. But
It
it's
still
mostly
feels
on
like
Iga. Like Sabalenka has been so consistent at the slams.
it's true.
Like I guess she also missed out a few times, like the match point against Muhova, right? So no,
Yeah.
it's also on Arena. Yeah, it's also on
Yeah.
Arena.
Oh, no, and also Wimbledon this year, right? She was up a break in the final set on
Yeah.
Amanda.
Although that was that
So
the first match or the second match?
first.
First, right? Yeah, first. But yeah, sure. Muhova was still the closest. So yeah, it's also on Arena actually. Yeah, never mind.
Yeah, but no, but the consistency from Arena is to be applauded. Like she's made 12 of her last 13, 11 of her last 12
11 of
semifinals.
12, I think. Yeah.
11 out of
So,
12, yeah, and one of those
and
was
the
a
one time she lost
quarterfinal.
was a quarterfinal.
Yeah, where she had a stomach bug. So, and she was definitely going to win that match. So it's pretty amazing. You can basically pencil it into the semis of every slam. Like it's
And we try to pick against her, right? We try to think like, oh, Rybakina is maybe going to be there in the quarters. Keys is going to be there in the quarters at Wimbledon.
yeah.
It just never happens. I mean, I
I
don't
suppose here
understand
there
how
was that
that's
one
possible.
Drosova like walkover thing, and I thought that might work against her just because it was like, oh, she's gonna have to like come back like 5 days later. But then I thought, but then I still feel like Pegula, like sure, Pegula played an awesome match, but you still just would back Sabalenka in that head to head, and just that she just has a little too
She
much.
showed something different though, Arena, to like with the entire slams the entire like slam campaigns this season. In that like how she was saving these break points in the third set, right, against Pegula, just monster cross court backhands. The kind
The
of
more
clutch that
amazing
she
thing,
didn't have this year at the slams.
the more amazing thing is also the tiebreak record. Like she's what
Oh yeah,
21 and 1 in tiebreaks and 19 in a row. Like
how is that even possible, right?
yeah. I'm very fascinated by that tiebreak streak. I really wonder who is going to be the one. It will end at some point, and I want to see how long it can go because
is it Alexandrova this year the only player that?
Alexandrova in Doha or something.
Yeah. And
Is
that
it
was the
Doha or
worst part of
Doha?
Arena's season, the Middle East swing, right? Like
Yeah,
that, literally, that was the only moment where she was like losing early, and
yeah. So I guess for her, it would have been a crime in her mind to have not won a slam this year.
Absolutely, yeah.
So,
and I thought that might block her as well. Like you've kind of fumbled it 3 times. You could argue that, and then you show up at the US Open, and again you might have that issue at the final stage. And she actually, well, I guess she had some nerves in the final. Sure, that's okay, but she managed to perform, kind of like go for that, use that desperation positively rather than negatively. And yeah, I mean, it's not really something outrageous to say. She deserved to have a slam this year. She was insanely consistent.
Yes, indeed. So yeah, I guess we should also talk about a few things that happened outside of the tennis for Iga this tournament, which is, I mean, the most famous one is obviously the press conference after the quarterfinal defeat to Amanda, where a question was posed by David Law, and it was basically the gist of what he was trying to ask her is like, you played Canada, you played Cincinnati. That's what I'm getting from it is like, you played Canada, you played Cincinnati, you played mixed doubles here, and it's been a long year, and you've talked about how it's the schedule is like very intense. Do you feel like you need a break? Essentially was the question, right? And I think Iga maybe like didn't quite understand the context, because I think David could have phrased it way better than he did. And I think I understand fully what he was getting at, but it was just phrased very poorly, and it made it seem like, oh, Świątek like just needs to take a break and I think that's not something Iga like wanted to hear after a loss, and wanted to feel like, oh, you need a mental break every single time you lose, because she has been asked this more often than just this one occasion, I feel like, and that kind of triggered that in her mind of like, why am I being targeted here, kind of. So that's why we saw a lot of a bit of an awkward exchange, where then she posed the question back to him and was like, do you need a mental health break, or something. And so yeah, it was just kind of an awkward, tense exchange. But yeah, what did you think about it?
Press conferences after losses, they can get a bit weird. Yeah, I think David could have phrased it a bit differently. At first, when I heard that Iga had an exchange like that with David Lowe, I was like, "You go, girl." But no, actually, yeah, I think the question is fine. Maybe could have been phrased better. But we were talking about this as well. That like after Wimbledon, she was just like very willing to keep going. Just play Canada 2 weeks later, which seemed like a bit of a crazy plan. So I think it's fine to pose a question like this. It's just pretty natural. Maybe she also felt like he was asking her to like make excuses for herself or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Either way, I think what she did there, like how quippy she was, she didn't really like go too far outside the line. So it was probably blown out of proportion a little bit, to be fair. And yeah, it just happens that you phrase something poorly, the player doesn't quite get it. Hopefully it's not really like a thing, for the future. We saw that Iga has some, she can hold grudges a little bit. Earlier in the tournament, there was that Polish journalist who asked the question about the beats.
She does have a little bit of like a way to put you in your place. She has that little bit of. She has a little bit
And
of
I heard that later on when he was asking questions, she was like not too responsive to them. Let's just say. That was also an interesting, of course, bit from a press
Dude,
conference.
I honestly think that's why she
question went
reacted the
viral.
way she did with David. Is I think she was just on high alert after all those exchanges
Possible.
with the
It's
Polish
possible.
media. I think she was just kind of like, oh, are they out to get me? Like in a way. So you maybe your first reaction is to kind of, yeah, like fight back a little bit. So I certainly
Could be.
don't blame her too much for the way she reacted there. Like I do think it wasn't like over the top rude or anything. Like it was a bit chippy for sure, but it's not like I've seen so much worse. So for me, it's like kind of mild.
David is a big boy, he's been around. So
Yeah,
like he's gonna be fine
he can
about it.
definitely
It's
take it.
not
He
his
can
first
definitely.
interaction like that with a player
Yeah, yeah.
also.
He
So.
I think he knows also that he could have phrased it better, and I think he.
Yeah, I think he
Yeah,
said it in a tweet or something like that.
yeah,
The guy from the Beats question has also explained himself on Twitter. Just said that like earlier there was a guy who was trying to get Iga to talk about not Osaka, Townsend Ostapenko and like the potential racism involved there, and like just gave this like very serious question. And the guy said he was just trying to like lighten the mood. I think the way he did it was yeah, it just didn't work out at all. But I understood what he was going for at least. I think Iga probably didn't see these posts on
Is that
Twitter.
the
Like,
one where he was talking in a very aggressive tone, or was that a different one?
yeah,
Okay, yeah. It seemed like he was just very aggressive.
maybe.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, I understand why the journalists in question made the moves that they did. I also understand why Iga was not too responsive to either of them.
yeah,
And it is what it is, right? I mean, we're not always going to like have the best connection in the press room or in an
yeah.
interview. It just happens, and yeah, I mean, these guys are they've been around. They'll be fine. Iga is also going to be fine, especially after a loss. I mean, it sometimes just gets like that, and there's not much you can do about it.
Yeah, for sure. Also, kind of in press conferences, it's really hard to get a follow up. So
Yeah.
once you kind of ask your question and you don't phrase it the best way, it's kind of really hard to like fix it in real time.
You cannot
Sort of. You can't
back
really
it up
back
with
down. Like
something. You
you
cannot
have
explain
to.
yourself further for the
Yeah, you
most
have
part.
to kind of improvise with what you have on the spot, and if it comes out wrong, it comes out wrong, and you just take that risk. Like, because you're probably not going to get a follow up after that, especially if they
Yeah.
only ask like 5 questions. That's kind of the unfortunate part about it. Sometimes, like from a journalist point of view, I can see how that might be like in a put you in a stressful situation because it's not easy. Yeah, especially after the loss. But yeah, that was definitely something that caught a lot of attention, probably way more than it needed to, but it did anyway. So thought we would address it for sure. But as far as the rest of the season goes, I guess we'll be back with the Asian swing with Beijing. I guess it's going to be Beijing and Tokyo maybe,
No
and
Labor Cup
Laver Cup
podcast.
maybe. Maybe we'll do a daily Laver Cup podcast because I know we'll be super glued in on all the action there. No.
Yeah, not gonna lie, I probably won't watch it.
Yeah. I mean,
It
we had
is
this
also a
phenomenon earlier
little
with the World Cup.
this year. The lineups I think are slightly worse than
I think it's a big downgrade for Team World. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, because they got rid of. I mean, Paul and Shelton couldn't make it, and those are like kind of the two of their biggest players, and instead they have like Opelka and Mickelson.
at least it's in the States, right? Like if you had
Yeah.
Mikkelsen and Opelka frontlining your tournament in, I don't know, Germany as it's been in recent years, I think it would be a bit worse in the
Yeah.
States. Maybe it works out. I mean, Alcaraz is kind of the main driving force behind the event right now, even though you also have Zverev. But like, yeah, the stardom is very different there. And then Team World, I suppose it's like Fonseca and the American boys. I don't know. I mean, the event is obviously an exhibition. I don't think it should be like scrapped off the tour or something like that. It's a tournament. Probably shouldn't count as like official matches, but it is what it is. And well, it started as like a Federer thing. It started as a try to get as many Big Four members. Right now, the Big Four is, well, basically on the way out with its last member. So yeah, it has to like evolve. And right now, they're probably working on like this assumption of every single year we just need to get one of Alcaraz or Sinner to make it work. And if they have that, they'll probably be okay.
I wonder what those tickets would look like if Alcaraz says tomorrow, you know what, Laver Cup, I don't feel like playing. I don't feel like going to San Francisco and then going to Tokyo.
That would be a tragedy for the event, I think. Yeah, ratings wise, tickets wise, yeah.
I remember getting a text from Andre. He's like, imagine paying $600 for the furthest tees to watch Opelka. I just started laughing. I'm like, wow, yeah.
Sorry, Riley, if you're listening, but
sorry, Riley, but
you would also see the
yeah,
fun
but sorry,
side.
but like Paul and Shelton being replaced with Opelka and Mickelson, I was just like, oh man.
I mean, honestly, Tommy Paul for like Riley Opelka for Tommy Paul or Alex Mickelson for Tommy Paul. I don't know if you lose that.
I don't know. It's just like for the public, I guess.
Shelton, though, yeah, Shelton.
I think Shelton is like the bigger one, but
Shelton could have been like the second force in this event, maybe along with Fonseca behind Alcaraz.
Tommy has like a unique cult of fans. It's kind of
that's true. Yeah, I don't know how huge the group is, but they do exist.
Yeah, there are Tommy Paul fans on Twitter and stuff, and
I
guess Matthew McConaughey is like the biggest leader, but you know,
Mario Boccardi. I thought you were gonna say.
yes. Actually, he might be ahead. Yeah, I think he probably
might be ahead of Matthew. That's the one thing that Mario has ahead of Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah. All right, before this podcast gets way too on a tangent, I think we should just end it. So, yep, I guess that was episode 66. Always fun doing a recap after one of Świątek and Alcaraz win. I mean, it's even better for the content and for us and for you guys. So, yeah, just keep tuning in. Follow at Igor Carlos Tennis to get updates on the podcast. And make sure to like and review, leave a rating on Apple, Spotify. It's pretty helpful. Follow the YouTube channel so you can see our facial expressions as we go through the stuff. If you guys are interested, of course, and definitely worth checking out the YouTube page. And
the amazing editing we do there with the videos, the thumbnails. I mean, come on.
Yeah, we just go all out, man. Like that is totally our brand. But we're making it work, and we get to cover quite a bit on these whenever we do them. So, yep, we'll have one soon, the next couple of weeks, I guess, and we'll go from here. And we'll probably do something in December as well. After the season's over, we'll try to bring some more guests and other people on. And yeah, and with that, I guess that's episode 66. So thank you, Damien, and we'll see you guys later.